All eyes are on Washington, D.C. as America readies for one of the most divisive elections of our time. It's also been the epicenter for the fight against racism, from Black Lives Matter protests to even the renaming of its NFL team. And of course, all while battling a pandemic as well. We're now pleased to be joined by the woman in the middle of all of it, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Mayor Bowser, great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I do want to start with the coronavirus here for a moment because D.C. reported about 80 new cases of the virus today. What is the spike coming from, and how has that really changed your guys' reopening plans?
We closely follow our data each and every day, and we are so grateful to our residents and businesses who have done everything that we've asked to blunt the curve of the spread of the virus in the district. And we are in a far different place than what early models suggested that we would be now. As we reopen, we know that without a cure or a vaccine, that you could see more cases. So we continue to ask our residents to be vigilant, to stay at home when sick, wash hands, social distance, and choose their activities wisely.
You guys also just had your third, I believe, antibody testing site open up in D.C. today as well. And you guys are also doing an antibody survey as well. Why is this so important, this particular thing that you guys are doing to really combat the spread of the virus here?
Well, I have to tell you that I'm so proud of our health officials and our entire emergency operation around testing. As we started to reopen with phase one, really got testing sites out across the city, including using fire stations, walk up and drive up sites, and have antibody testing. We will be sending a letter to 850 people randomly selected to participate in this antibody test. Our health officials think that this will be just another level of data to tell us how this virus is operating in our city. It's so important that if people feel like they've been exposed and if they need a test, that they get a diagnostic test, they quarantine and isolate so we can stop the spread of the virus.
Mayor Bowser, I also want to get your reaction to this report that came into the New York Times yesterday. Essentially, the Trump administration is now ordering hospitals to bypass the CDC website when they're admitting data into that website, and basically now just to give it to Health and Human Services. There are a lot of people who are concerned that maybe this is blunting transparency, that we wouldn't be able to get a lot of the figures here. What's your reaction to this, that hospitals are now required to do this?
Well, my reaction is I'm skeptical, as it sounds like many people are, that the data is actually getting to the scientists that need it. And we've already heard from the White House their kind of desire not to be fully transparent with testing data. So we really rely on information from hospitals. Hospitals report that to us directly, and we're going to continue to require our hospitals to report directly to DC Health because knowing what's happening in ICUs and with ventilators is very important to the decisions that I make about how we can reopen.
The other concern out there, Mayor Bowser, is about opening of schools and what's going to be happening come the fall. We know the Trump administration has been basically wants a lot of these schools to open. What happens if parents are not comfortable based on where they live, maybe even in the D.C. area, with sending their kids back to school? What do you think about this?
Well, first, I'll just say I think how unfortunate it is that the administration has made this a political question, much like they made the question of wearing masks political. I think that everybody recognizes, from pediatricians to educators, how important it is to get our kids back to face-to-face learning in school buildings. That's what's best for kids. So all of us are charged with figuring out how to do it safely with COVID in mind. And so that's a discussion that we're having in DC right now with parents and with teachers about how we can get our kids in person as often as possible.
Mayor Bowser, I want to switch gears and talk about the football team here for a moment, because obviously DC has been the center of so much over the course of the last little while, from protests to rallies to so many other things right now. Now the football team name is going to be changed right now, and there's a bunch of different names in contention. Is there one in particular that you feel like would be best to really showcase what DC has to offer while also still paying tribute to who the team is and what they should be doing?
You know, that is a tough one. As a person who grew up here in Washington, D.C., loving football, and once having a championship football team here in Washington, I am very eager to both have the team change their name. I said a few weeks ago when asked this question that it was past time for the Redskins to retire that name, to get rid of that name is hurtful to too many people. And we're looking forward to them having a robust discussion. I've heard a lot of things, a lot of different names brought up. I think it's going to be a tough decision. But we have experience with a team having changed its name here in Washington, and people hardly remember. Our basketball team used to be called the Washington Bullets, and they became the Washington Wizards. And I think what's really important to the transition of the team is that the changes that they make, including ownership, there may be some ownership changes with the minority shares of the team and the location of the team. I won't make any bones about the fact that it's called the Washington, whatever they decide, but they still don't play in Washington. And so we know that we want them to join the championship Capitals, the championship Mystics, and the championship Nationals in the District of Champions.
Oh yeah, I remember those Wizard days. Those were when Michael Jordan was playing for you guys too. Those were the good days. So you don't have a horse in this race. You're not thinking Red Tails. You're not thinking Generals. You don't have a horse in this race. You're fine with whatever.
Not yet. You know, I may at some point because one of the names that I didn't like at first is growing on me. So I think I'm gonna give it some more thought, and I may weigh in at some point. But I think what's the most important part is that we will have a team name that is respectful of everyone, and then we'll work on getting them back to Washington D.C.
All right, DC Mayor Muriel Bowser, great to have you here, Mayor. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much for joining us.